This meant that the enormous being buried deep within the earth must have at least 16 such arms, 8-headed dragons, at least 16 terrifying giants. What in the world is this place? Am I dreaming? He bit down hard on his tongue.
The sharp pain, a jolt of reality, not a dream. Unlike before, this wasn't a dream, he remembered. After his fight with Nie Hong, during his persistent high fever, he would often drift into hazy dreams.
The unknown world he saw in those dreams bore a faint resemblance to the scene before him. But he always knew those dreams were just dreams, not real. Yet this time, he wasn't dreaming, he was in the real world, in an unknown land utterly foreign to him.
Hiss hiss! Beside his foot, the beast bone that had brought him here flickered with faint sparks of light. He subconsciously looked at the bone. He didn't know why, but just looking at those sparks filled him with an overwhelming sense of sorrow.
The flickering flames seemed to be whispering a story. A dragon, a thought struck him. He suddenly recalled the strange world he had glimpsed within the drop of blood congealed from the beast bone in Mine 73. A space of raging flames.
Countless fires coalescing into a colossal fiery dragon later, on his way back to Black Cloud City, when he threw the beast bone at the two men in blue, it too had transformed into a dragon of flame. After pondering for a while,
he gradually came to a realization that beast bone must have come from a fiery dragon. The 8 skeletal dragons beside the altar must have belonged to the same species as that bone. Fiery dragons in life, I should explore.
This world is far larger than what I've seen. Further lands may hold even greater mysteries. Thinking this, he tried to stand, but the gravity emanating from the earth pressed down on him relentlessly. He couldn't even stand. Chapter 26.
He couldn't even stand. Barely managing to sit upright on the sacrificial altar. Felt a wave of dejection. But the feeling was fleeting. He quickly realized the unusual nature of this place, recognizing it as a unique opportunity for self-cultivation.
The stronger the gravitational field, the greater the burden on the body, a perfect environment to forge and strengthen the physical form. From a young age, he knew he was far stronger than his peers.
His battles with Nie Hong and the others had relied heavily on his physical prowess to compensate for his lower cultivation level. Whew! Taking a deep breath, he attempted to move his arms within this terrifying gravitational field. Compared to his entire body,
his arms were significantly lighter, thus experiencing far less gravitational pull. As expected, while moving his arms was far more difficult than usual, he could still manage it. Seated on the ruined altar, he sat, convulsing slightly,
repeatedly lifting his arms with great effort, aiming them towards the sky, striving to fully experience the gravitational field's impact on his muscles. In between, gazing into the far distance.
At the colossal hands rising from the earth, reaching towards the heavens, a sudden thought struck him. Each hand pointed towards the sky in a different posture, each seemingly imbued with a distinct emotion. He,
who had been lifting his arms towards the heavens for so long, had begun to feel a sense of listlessness. But upon noticing the varied postures of those giant arms, a sudden inspiration struck him, and he began to mimic their gestures.
The first he emulated was a giant arm with fingers clenched into a tight fist, knuckles bulging with straining tendons, pointing towards the sky. His eyes fixated on that mountain-like arm, as if sensing a surge of resentful rage emanating from it.
He didn't know why, but simply by looking, a turbulent sense of anger began to well up within his heart. His gaze at the giant arm was unknowingly consumed by a raging inferno. His expression became fierce and furious, a burning desire to destroy the heavens.
To shatter all constraints, swirling within his heart, his hands, which had only been mimicking the giant arm's movements, suddenly seemed imbued with life. Following the shift in his emotions, he acutely sensed the spiritual energy in his dantian,
surging out from the spiritual sea and rapidly flowing through his meridians towards his hand. Within his arm, each meridian seemed to contain a raging inferno. It felt infused with a furious intensity. Hiss! His fist,
raised to the heavens, suddenly glowed with a pale white light. Threads of this light coiled around his knuckles, each imbued with a frenzied rage, as if the power of the released spiritual energy had significantly increased. Layer 6!
Overflow. Having reached the 6th layer of the key condensation realm, his spiritual energy could now manifest externally. In combat, he could channel it into an opponent through physical contact. During his previous battle with Nie Hong,
also at Q condensation layer 6, had blasted the residual energy of his lightning strikes into his body with their clashing fists. As a result, each of his hard impacts with Nie Hong left lingering electric energy in his body,
causing him immense suffering. Not long ago in Mine 73, he had inexplicably broken through to the 6th layer of Q condensation, but hadn't yet truly experienced the wonders of spiritual energy overflow. Now, in this unknown realm,
encountering almost no difficulties, he was instantly able to achieve the spiritual energy overflow of the 6th layer of Q condensation. This surprised him considerably, because, according to Nie Tian,
Someone who had just broken through to the 6th level of qi cultivation would need repeated attempts before they could manifest their spiritual energy externally and control it freely. Yet he had succeeded on his first try. Not only that,
but he distinctly felt that the spiritual energy manifested on his fist carried a surge of rage. Emotions were not attributes of spiritual energy, they shouldn't possess additional power.
Yet he believed that the rage infused within his spiritual energy held a certain wonder. Unfortunately, Nie Hong wasn't there, otherwise, he could have tested the extent of the rage's power with this punch. As he fell into contemplation,
his state of mind shifted, becoming less agitated and furious. The spiritual energy gathered in his arm instantly flowed back into his spiritual sea, and the energy on his arm vanished abruptly, immediately.
He realized that his distraction had prevented him from maintaining a consistently angry and volatile state of mind. Once his state of mind shifted from rage to calm, the extraordinary quality of his raised fist disappeared.
His spiritual energy returned to normal, and everything reverted to its usual state. State of mind! State of mind is the key. After a moment of enlightenment, he focused his mind and looked again at the mountain-like giant arm in the distance.
He carefully sensed the overwhelming rage contained within the clenched fist. As he gradually immersed himself in it, he once again found himself affected, his heart becoming agitated and furious after his anger filled his heart.
He imitated the giant arm's posture, clenching his fist and slowly striking towards the sky. Threads of spiritual energy, following the extension of his posture, once again surged wildly from his spiritual sea, instantly pouring into the meridians of his arm.
As if roaring all the way into his fist, pale white spiritual energy indeed flashed from his fist, each thread carrying a furious rage. That's it! A feeling of joy involuntarily welled up in his heart.
And the anger he had painstakingly cultivated suddenly vanished. A moment later, he found that the strange phenomenon had already left him. However, through this attempt, he had grasped the knack, and then practiced repeatedly. After that practice,
as long as he maintained the anger in his heart, that strange sensation of a fist brimming with rage would persist. However,
he also discovered that only by fixing his gaze on the distant giant arm could he gradually cultivate the feeling of furious rage in his heart. When he didn't look at the giant's hand, but instead tried to generate the fist's power with his own anger.
That mysterious, strange sensation could never be replicated. It seemed that only by truly grasping the raging, resentful anger within the fist, truly understanding it, could one comprehend the secret. Recognizing this, he calmed down,
ceasing his futile efforts. Instead, he stared intently at the giant arm reaching towards the heavens. Using his heart to comprehend the mental state of the arm's owner when he threw a punch, he completely immersed himself, forgetting the passage of time.
Forgetting his surroundings, even forgetting himself. When he abandoned even his own self, in a daze, he felt as if he were the giant arm's owner, fearless of the constraints of rules, daring to contend with heaven and earth.
To defy the heavens with unwavering resolve. Screech, after an unknown amount of time, faint flames suddenly erupted from the beast bone beneath his feet.
The drop of blood Nunzie within the beast bone seemed to have been constantly consuming the power of the flames. Now, when the flame's power had been depleted to a certain degree, the beast bone underwent a sudden change. Huff, huff.
Clusters of flames burst forth from within the beast bone, startling Nie Tian awake. Nie Tian glanced, suddenly realizing the blood within the beast bone seemed much less than when it had solidified.
He immediately understood that the beast bone had unknowingly consumed a vast amount of flame power. As he remained uncertain and surprised, the beast bone continued to change, transforming once more into a fiery light tunnel.
Watching the fiery light tunnel form, he seemed to understand at once, realizing the flame power within the beast bone was only enough to open a return passage. Otherwise, if the flame power continued to be consumed,
the beast bone wouldn't have the strength to form the fiery light tunnel to send him away. Was he only leaving temporarily? Looking at those mountain-like giant arms, he, who had only just grasped the knack of it, felt reluctant to leave.
But the beast bone didn't give him more time to consider. The fiery light tunnel it had formed swallowed him whole. Chapter Lo 27. A big stir. The Nie family. Nie Tian had disappeared for 10 whole days. During those 10 days,
Nie Donghai had forced Nie Xuanhuan to go with him to the Yun family to demand his return. The Yun family vehemently denied any involvement in Nie Tian's disappearance.
The Lingyan sect had rarely paid attention to Nie Donghai's affairs due to their dissatisfaction with him. But this time, for some unknown reason, after Nie Donghai explained Nie Tian's situation to the Lingyan sect,
they immediately dispatched Li Fan down the mountain. Li Fan, leading Nie Donghai, disregarded the Yun family's face and turned their entire house upside down. Unfortunately, Li Fan didn't find Nie Tian at the Yun family.
Li Fan didn't give up. He went straight to the Yuan family in Hanxi City and searched their entire residence, but he still found nothing. 10 days later, Li Fan remained at the Nie family,
utilizing the power of the Lingyan sect to continue searching for Nie Tian in the surrounding cities. This time, the Lingyan sect was genuinely concerned about Nie Tian's disappearance and was searching for him everywhere. Nie Tian,
the current head of the Nie family, saw the Lingyan sect's extensive efforts. While secretly feeling a bit gleeful, he outwardly cooperated fully. In the morning,
Nie Tian and Nie Donghai arrived at Li Fan's guest room early to inquire about the latest news from the Lingyan sect. Seeing Li Fan shake his head helplessly, "Mr. Li, Xiao Tian is our spiritual pillar. We only have Xiao Tian left, please.
Find him at all costs. Please, Mr. Li, put in more effort." Nie Donghai pleaded, his eyes red. For 10 days, he hadn't slept a single good night. He appeared increasingly aged. Lei Tie's disappearance nearly drove him to the brink of collapse, haunted by demons.
He whispered his name night after night, hoping for his sudden return. "I've contacted many friends, searching for news of Nie Tian within 100 miles. I'd be the first to know if he appeared," Nie Fan assured them, then frowned, equally perplexed.
To be honest with you all, this matter may truly be unrelated to the Yun and Yuan families. Several people in both families have good relations with our Lingyan sect. I've thoroughly investigated through them, and they know nothing about that child Li Tian.
If not the Yun and Yuan families, then who? Nie Tian felt herself teetering on the edge of despair. Lingyan sect's level of commitment to finding Nie Tian deeply moved Nie Donghai and Nie Ted. They knew they had truly done their best. If even Lingyan sect, with all its resources,
couldn't find Nie Tian, the Nie family had even less chance. Rest assured, as long as Nie Tian is still alive, there will always be a way. Li Fan offered words of comfort at that moment. Li Fan's expression shifted, a soft hum escaping his lips before he quickly rushed out the door.
"Over there! The spatial fluctuations are highly unusual." As soon as he stepped outside, Nie Fan pointed to a spot, his face contorted. "A spatial fissure is opening." Following Nie Fan's direction, Nie Donghai and Nie Tian focused their gaze,
both noticing a hissing sound emanating from the air above Lei Tian's room. "It's Xiaoxin's room!" Nie Tian and Nie Donghai, breathing heavily, raced towards it at top speed. Hearing that it was the room where Nie Tian disappeared, Li Fan's expression
whoosh, like a streak of lightning. Li Fan overtook Nie Tian and Nie Donghai, arriving at the scene first. When Nie Tian and Nie Donghai arrived, Li Fan let out a loud shout, "Don't get close!"
Many members of the Nie family, also sensing the unusual changes, gathered from all directions. Soon, over a dozen members of the Nie family surrounded Nie Tian's room. Crack, crack!
The small stone house where Nie Tian was located suddenly shattered before everyone's eyes. Bright, sharp cracks, like blades, crisscrossed the air above the house. Dazzling, alien lights flashed intermittently from the cracks,
like shooting stars briefly illuminating the unknown spaces within. The area had become extremely unstable, the magnetic field chaotic, with multicolored fragments of light flickering from the spatial fissures. These fragments of light,
upon contact with any solid object, would instantly explode, generating a violent shockwave. Boom! Nie Tian's stonehouse finally exploded completely. As the stones shattered, spatial fissures wreathed, becoming increasingly unstable. "Everyone, back!"
Li Fan's expression changed drastically. He roared, ordering all the Nie clan members to immediately leave the area. "Get back, everyone, get back!" Nie Tian, arriving hastily, was struck speechless by the bizarre scene, and shouted a warning, already uneasy.
The Nie clan members, heeding Li Fan and Nie Tian's warnings, quickly evacuated. Only after reaching 100 meters away did they feel slightly reassured. Turning back to watch the area of spatial magnetic field turbulence, Nie Tian!
Nie Tian's in the rubble. Sharp-eyed members of the Nie family cried out in disbelief. At that moment, Nie Donghai and Nie Tian also noticed a small figure rising from the piles of debris within the collapsed stone house. That figure was unmistakably Nie.
Nie Tian, now standing amidst the rubble, looked dazed and disoriented, as if bewildered by the strange events that had transpired. He looked up at the distorted, wavering spatial rifts tearing through the air, then instinctively ducked,
fearing contact with the fissures. "Don't move!" Li Fan shouted, his gaze fixed on Nie Tian. "Stay where you are! Don't move!" Oh, Nie Tian nodded repeatedly. Li Fan took a deep breath, his eyes gleaming. Suddenly,
he spoke to it excitedly. "Master, a spatial turbulence zone has suddenly appeared in the Nie family. Stay where you are. Don't act rashly." A voice, full of authority, emanated from the jade pendant. At the sound,
Nie Donghai, Nie Tian, and the others were all jolted. From the voice, they recognized the speaker to be none other than Zhang Zizu, the Grand Master of the Lingyan sect. The Nie family was merely one of the Lingyan sect's vassals.
Since the Nie family established themselves in Black Cloud City, Zhang Zizu had never visited them, not even once. Even Nie Donghai and Nie Tian, as heads of the family, had only met Zhang Zizu a few times on Lingyan Mountain.
The fact that Zhang Zizu was going to personally visit the Nie family shocked every member of the clan, except for the Nie family head. "Everyone else get out!" Li Fan pondered for a moment, then pointed at Nie Donghai. "You stay too, all other relevant people.
Get away from here immediately. And keep your mouth shut. Not a word about the spatial turbulence zone appearing in the Nie family is to be leaked. What are you all still standing around for? Listen to Mr. Li and leave immediately, Nie Tian roared.
Under his command, the large number of Nie family members gathered there, though filled with questions, obeyed and retreated. Even Nie Tian, who had been worried about Nie Tian, slowly backed away under the Donghai's repeated gestures. This is a serious matter.
Let's wait here. After the Nie family dispersed one by one, Li Fan said solemnly, understood. Nie Donghai and Nie Tian were also panicked, nodding repeatedly in agreement. However,
just as they were preparing to wait patiently for Jiang Zisu to arrive, strange spatial fissures that had suddenly appeared were inexplicably slowly closing. This, Nie Tian was astonished. In a very short time,
all the spatial fissures that had appeared vanished. The chaotic spatial magnetic field that had just been present gradually returned to normal, and the strange phenomenon in the sky completely disappeared. How could this be? Li Fan said at a loss.
But Nie Donghai, upon seeing the disappearance of the spatial fissures, showed a look of relief on his face. Because he knew Nie Tian was safe. A chaotic spatial rift, space torn asunder, within the jumble of rocks. Nie Tian huddled, his mind racing.
He realized all the anomalies were connected to the beast bone in his hand. His head hung low, strange lights flickering in his eyes as he considered how to explain things. The beast bone must remain a secret. The mysteries of that other place.
I must unravel them myself, he steeled his resolve, quickly formulating an explanation. Chapter 0028. The sect master arrives. Who dares trespass on Nie family property? Stop, as Nie Tian pondered. Angry shouts from Nie Nanshan. Nie can.
Li Fan's expression shifted subtly, seemingly aware that the anomaly here had attracted the attention of a powerful being. Get lost! A sharp, feminine cry rang out from a distance,
followed soon after by a fiery red figure that descended abruptly. She was a strikingly beautiful woman in a scarlet dress, her beauty as vibrant as fire, her earrings, the heart-shaped pendant nestled against her snow-white neck,
and the bracelets adorning her fair arms, all shimmered with light of varying hues, already breathtakingly beautiful. The numerous precious adornments she wore only heightened her air of regal elegance. Li Fan, the woman in scarlet,
her beauty like a burning flame, stopped abruptly, her eyes falling upon Lingyan sect's Li Fan. A smile bloomed on her lips. What are you doing here? This is the Nie family estate. The Nie family is a subordinate family of our Lingyan sect.
Normal for me to be here. Li Fan snorted, displeasure evident in his tone. This isn't your An family's estate. And she, why have you come here? Disregarding the master's attempts to stop you. And she, Nie Tian paused,
his gaze involuntarily drawn to the stunning woman in red. Having lived in Black Cloud City for many years, he naturally knew the influential figures of the city's three great families, the An and Yun families. Over the years, with the Nie family's decline,
the Yun family had clearly surpassed them, ranking second among the three great families of Black Cloud City. However, the An family had always been the most powerful family in Black Cloud City, managing the Spirit Treasure Pavilion within the city.
Like Lingyan sect, the Spirit Treasure Pavilion was a powerful sect of cultivators, and the An family served as its representative in Black Cloud City.
Legend had it that the An family's position as the Spirit Treasure Pavilion's representative in Black Cloud City was due to the woman before them. And she, it said this woman holds a high position in the Spirit Treasure Pavilion.
Not only possessing extraordinary strength but also possessing shrewd skills, having made significant contributions to the pavilion and earning the deep respect of its master.
Since leaving the An family and becoming a prominent figure in the Spirit Treasure Pavilion, she's rarely returned to Black Cloud City in recent years. The sudden appearance of such a powerful figure, once famous in Black Cloud City,
filled Nie Tian with quiet surprise. Little brother, do I look pretty? Noticing Nie Tian's gaze, and she deliberately ignored Li Fan's question, suddenly smiling sweetly and throwing him a flirtatious glance. Nie Tian, about to emerge from the pile of rocks,
froze, carefully observing and she before grinning. Sister, if I ever get married, I'll marry someone just like you. Giggles. And she laughed, her body shaking with mirth. Such a sweet mouth. When you grow up, if I'm still unmarried, I'll marry you. Okay.
Nie Tian readily agreed. Nie Donghai stared blankly at Nie Tian, a mixture of amusement and bewilderment washing over him, as if he found Nie Tian's actions too reckless. Impudent. Nie Tian snorted. Miss An, Li Fan reminded.
You haven't answered my question yet. And she still didn't look at Li Fan. Instead, she pulled a crimson dagger from her waist pouch and casually tossed it to Nie Tian. Here you go. The crimson dagger, as it flew,
was suddenly enveloped in flames. Nie Tian didn't dare catch it. He watched the dagger land, the flames die down, before picking it up and winking at An Shi. Thank you, sister, for this token of your affection. Hee, what a fun young man.
Amusement danced in An Shi's eyes. Then turning her head, she said to Nie Donghai, consider that dagger my apology for trespassing on the Nie family's property. Nie Donghai's face darkened. He shook his head. I'm no longer the head of the Nie family. Oh!
And she nodded lightly, muttering in a voice clearly audible to Nie Beichuan. After all that scheming, someone finally got their wish. It's a pity, though I don't think they'll be in that position for long. They just don't have the breadth of vision.
What do you mean? Bikuan demanded angrily, and she glanced at him. Her lips curled in disdain. Calmly she said, I mean, under your leadership, the Nie family will likely never rise again. You. Nie Beichuan fumed, his face reddening.
But he seemed to hesitate, mindful of Anshi's status, and dared not act rashly. Alright, no more joking around. And she furrowed her brows and finally looked at Li Fan, saying seriously, some things can't be hidden.
I saw the intense spatial fluctuations and the dazzling spatial fissures from afar. The spatial magnetic field here is clearly unusual. An unstable spatial turbulence zone should gradually form. What does the formation of a spatial turbulence zone mean?
We both know, your Lingyan sect wants to monopolize it and explore it with the strength of a single sect. That's not going to be easy, is it? Finders keepers, losers weepers. Our Lingbao pavilion will also get involved, and she stated forcefully.
This is the Nie family. The Nie family belongs to our Lingyan sect. Since the spatial turbulence zone appeared in the Nie family's territory, it should belong to our Lingyan sect, Li Fan declared resolutely. The Nie family is also part of Haiyan City.
Since it appeared in Haiyun City, the N family naturally has a share, and she retorted. At this time, Nie Tian, having left the pile of rocks, came to Nie Donghai's side, holding the dagger and she had given him.
Nie Donghai didn't pay attention to the argument between Li Fan and Anshi, but pulled Nie Tian aside and whispered, Are you alright? He didn't ask where Nie Tian had gone. Clearly, he only cared about Nie Tian. Grandpa, don't worry.
I'm fine, whispered. Donghai nodded, saying nothing more, and redirected his attention to Li Fan and Anshi. Sect Master Jing! The Sect Master has arrived! At that moment,
the respectful voices of Nananshan and the other Nie family members came from outside. Hearing that Zhang Jusu had arrived, and she immediately ceased her argument with Li Fan, her expression turning serious and solemn. The sect master is here.
Think carefully before you speak later, Nie Donghai softly cautioned, his words carrying a subtle warning. Nie Tian nodded in understanding. Seconds later, Zhang Jisu, clad in a green robe, appeared within Nie Tian's line of sight, accompanied by Ninanshan.
Zhang Jusu, the sect master of Lingyan sect, appeared to be only around 40 years old. His face was weathered, his expression as impassive as still water, seemingly unmoved even by the weight of a mountain. Ah, you're here too, he said calmly.
Addressing the An family's servant girl, greetings, uncle, and she replied, her usual sharpness subdued. She appeared demure and virtuous. I happened to be in Black Cloud City these past few days.
I sensed the spatial rift that appeared at the Nie family's residence and came to investigate. After a moment's hesitation, she continued her explanation. I didn't know beforehand that your disciple, Li Fan, was also here. I was worried that the Nie family,
unaware of the danger of a spatial rift, might suffer heavy casualties through recklessness. My intentions were purely good. Fortunately, she added, the spatial turbulence zone hasn't fully formed yet, so my concerns haven't materialized.
Zhang Jisu nodded after listening to her explanation. I heard what you said earlier. If this truly is a spatial turbulence zone, and if it eventually fully forms, Lingyan sect will inevitably invite the Lingbao pavilion to join us in investigating it.
Thank you, Uncle Zhang, and she bowed her head in gratitude, then smiled at Nie Donghai. Excuse me. With that, she winked at Nie Tian and left without a moment's hesitation. She seemed to have been waiting only for a promise from Zhang Jisu.
And once she received it, she promptly departed from the Nie residence. Tell me everything you saw in detail, Zhang Jisu instructed Li Fan. Li Fan, without concealing anything,
clearly recounted all the unusual occurrences he had observed at the Nie family residence. After he finished speaking, Zhang Jisu closed her eyes and thought for a moment, then suddenly looked at Nie Tian and said,
Keep this child, the rest of the Nie family may leave for now. At these words, the three Nie brothers, Nie Donghai and his siblings, bowed slightly to him before departing, each with their own thoughts. Child, I heard you disappeared for 10 days.
Where did you go during those 10 days? After their figures completely disappeared, Zhang Jisu looked at Nie Tian and asked softly, 10 days ago, a similar spatial rift appeared. That time, I was sucked into one of the rifts.
Nie Tian took a deep breath and answered seriously, sucked in. A strange light flashed in Zhang Jusu's eyes. Then what? What did you see? And how did you come back? All I saw were countless streams of light, like countless meteors flying past me.
Nie Tian described it, his face full of wonder, as if he were recounting a dream. It was like being in a gorgeous dream, full of scattered light, colorful meteors flashing past. I felt like I stayed there for a long time, and yet only a moment then.
I flew back out and returned to the Nie family. I didn't expect 10 days to pass so quickly. It's so strange. Nie Tian's face was full of bewilderment. Still seemingly puzzled and unclear about what had happened to him, Zhang Zhusu watched him,
listening carefully to his story, before nodding after a long moment and softly saying, "All right, go find your grandfather," and awkwardly, mimicking Nie Donghai's earlier actions, bowed to Zhang Zhusu before leaving. "Master,"
Li Fan asked. False. Zhang Zhusu's expression remained unchanged. That little rascal dared to deceive you, Li Fan said angrily. I'll call him back right now. Zhang Zhusu shook his head, his eyes somewhat strange.
As if he also found Nie Tian's audacity remarkable. The truth or falsehood wasn't important. What mattered was that something peculiar had indeed occurred here on him. Without clarifying the truth, how will we proceed? Li Fan said indignantly.
If it's truly a spatial turbulence field about to form, it will gradually manifest itself later. If not, it's the child's own anomaly. Zhang Zhusu stroked his chin, thought for a moment, and then said, I'd actually prefer if the peculiarity originated from him.
What? Li Fan asked in confusion. Someone in the back mountain has taken a liking to him. Sooner or later, he'll be a disciple of our Lingyan sect. If the peculiarity stems from him, once he becomes a disciple of Lingyan sect,
it will naturally belong to our sect, Zhang Zhusu explained with deep meaning. Then added, stay at the Nie family for a while, and see if any further anomalies occur. Chapter Zoyuder 90 using one's strength against another.
Nie Tian bid farewell to Zhang Zhusu and naturally went to find Nie Donghai. At the Nie family's pavilion, numerous clan members gathered. Not only were Nie Donghai's three brothers present, but also Nie Tian, Nie Can, and other second-generation clan members.
As soon as Nie Tian arrived, he noticed his maternal grandfather's gloomy expression, while Nie Tian looked wronged, arguing with Nie Bichuan. Nie Tian arrived. Nie Can turned his head, noticing him arriving alone, and immediately alerted everyone.
Countless curious gazes instantly converged on Nie Tian. Nie Tian, has Grandmaster Zheng left? Nie Nanshan asked. Nie Tian nodded. He asked me some questions, spoke with Mr. Li for a few words, and then left. Hearing that Zhang Zhusu had left,
the burden seemed to lift from the hearts of the Nie clan members. They visibly relaxed. Zhang Zhusu's identity weighed too heavily on the Nie family, as long as he remained in the Nie household.
Every member of the family would likely be afraid to even speak loudly. What did the Grandmaster ask you? Nie Bichuan asked sternly. Nie Tian, without the slightest hesitation, recounted Zhang Zhusu's question, and his answer sucked into a spatial rift.
Then inexplicably back to his family. Nie Bichuan's expression was strange, his gaze suspicious as he stared intently, seemingly trying to discern something amiss on the other's face. Under his gaze, Nie Tian remained silent, appearing quite calm.
Nie Bichuan watched for a while, finding nothing amiss, then suddenly said, the dagger given to you by that girl from the An family is a form of recompense for her trespassing on Nie family property. That dagger should be surrendered to the armory.
Second brother, Nie Donghai coldly snorted. She clearly stated it was a gift for little Tian, so it should belong to little Tian. Why should it be surrendered? Nie Tian angrily retorted. Nie Tian was startled, a thought occurring to him.
Immediately understanding why Nie Tian and Nie Bichuan had just argued. I am the head of the Nie family, and she's forceful entry into the Nie family naturally requires recompense.
And she herself stated that the recompense is the dagger in Nie Tian's possession. Nie Bichuan raised his voice, his head held high, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the Nie family members. The patriarch is right. That's only right. That's how it should be.
Most of the Nie family members who witnessed this scene echoed his decision, agreeing with him. A small faction leaned towards Nie Donghai, but knowing Nie Bichuan's growing power, they dared not voice their support despite their discontent.
Her bright eyes blazing with anger and resentment. Nie Donghai felt immense disappointment at the clan members' behavior. He sighed and prepared to persuade Nie Tian to hand over the dagger. Just now, Nie Tian held the dagger,
slowly raising it, and said with a smile, after Grandmaster Zhang questioned me, I took out this dagger and said it didn't belong to me, that I wanted to give it to Mr. Li to handle, but Grandmaster Zhang said that since it was a gift from someone,
I should keep it well and not disappoint their kindness. However, he paused, looked at Nie Bichuan and continued, since the patriarch says this dagger needs to be surrendered, I will surrender it. With that, he opened his hand, waiting for Nie Ping,
the person in charge of the armory, to collect it. However, after he finished speaking, the Nie clan members who had been clamoring for him to surrender the dagger suddenly fell silent. Even Nie Bichuan's face turned cloudy and uncertain.
He didn't know if what Nie Tian said was true or false. If it were true, if Zhang Zhusu had really said that, he would never dare disobey her wishes. Even if Zhang Zhusu had already left, even if she were currently at the Nie residence,
he wouldn't dare to verify it. He couldn't even inquire with Li Fan, lest Li Fan look down on him. Thus, when he looked at the dagger again, he found it blinding, as his expression shifted and he remained silent. Nie Tian raised his hand
and shouted, Nie Ping uncle? Nie Ping was Nie Bichuan's confidant. Recently, Because Nie Tian needed to exchange fire cloud stones, he had repeatedly made things difficult for her,
deducting a significant portion of the fire cloud stones that rightfully belonged to her now. As Nie Tian put on a show of waiting for him to accept the dagger, he suddenly felt incredibly awkward. He timidly looked at Nie Tian. "Here you go."
Seeing Nie Ping hesitate to take it, Nie Tian smiled faintly, stepped forward, and forcefully pressed the dagger into his hand. "I'll tell Mr. Li in a moment that I've turned the dagger over to the Nie family's armory. After all, I'm still young."
Possessing an artifact of that level, it wouldn't look good on me, right? Nie Tian said with self-deprecation. Even without a deep understanding of artifact rankings, he knew that the dagger and she had given him was no ordinary object. "Ah, no!"
At the mention of informing Li Fan, Nie Ping trembled, the dagger suddenly feeling like a burning coal in his hands. Without a second thought, he quickly shoved it back into Nie Tian's hand. Immediately, Nie Ping looked pitifully at Nie Tian,
his expression on the verge of tears. Nie Tian was also startled. He looked deeply at Nie Tian, then said helpfully, "Since Grandmaster Zhang entrusted you with it, you should keep it safe." "Oh, then I thank the patriarch," Nie Tian said nonchalantly.
Previously he had called Nie Tian's second grandfather. As Nie Tian became patriarch and his actions grew increasingly egregious, he stopped using that term, addressing him formally as patriarch instead. In his heart,
Nie Tian no longer deserved to be called grandfather. "Can we go now?" Nie Donghai coldly snorted. Nie Tian remained silent. "Let's go," Nie Donghai said. "Stay with me for a while, then."
Nie Donghai led Nie Tian towards the secluded stone tower where he now resided, Nie Tian looking up, also following happily. Arriving at Nie Donghai's stone tower, he closed the door, then lovingly touched Nie Tian's head and smiled faintly. "Clever."
Nie Tian chuckled softly, knowing Nie Donghai had seen through his ploy of using Jiang Zisu to pressure Nie Tian. "Xiao Tian, where have you been these past few days?" Nie Tian was eager to know what had happened in those 10 days. Nie Donghai glared sharply,
cutting her off before she could continue. Then he led the two to his study, picked up pen and ink, and swiftly wrote on a piece of paper, "Never tell anyone the truth of what you encountered and saw during those 10 days. With the sect master's cultivation."
Even from 10 miles away, if he wants to hear, he can hear every word you say, including your quietest whispers, and we don't have the power to prevent the sound from leaking out. On the paper, Nie Donghai's vigorous and ancient script gradually appeared.
After reading it, Nie Tian was suddenly startled and dared not ask another question. Nie Tian nodded lightly, indicating his understanding. At this moment, he realized that compared to his grandfather, Nie Tian was incredibly foolish.
Since Jiang Zisu could hear the conversations of everyone in the Nie family from a great distance, Nie Tian's previous actions would naturally have been heard by Jiang Zisu if she wanted to listen. With Jiang Zisu's intelligence,
if she hadn't extracted the true answer from him, it was highly likely that she was secretly paying attention, seeking to uncover the truth. Perhaps, at this very moment, Jiang Zisu was listening to their conversation.
Nie Tian hadn't realized this. His actions were far too narrow-minded. If Jiang Zisu heard them, it would inevitably leave a bad impression on her. And indeed, this was the case. At that time, outside the city of Haiyan City, who had stopped,
smiled gently and said to himself, "Such a clever lad." Having spoken, he didn't linger, his body like a long rainbow, shooting towards Lingyan Mountain like a crimson lightning bolt. He could afford to focus too much energy on the Nie family.
Unable to uncover the truth in a short time, he could only leave for now, reserving the investigation for later. Chapter 030 Li Fan's instigation. For the following 3 months, Li Fan remained at the Nie family residence,
specifically near the site where the spatial fissure had appeared. Unfortunately, despite his 3-month vigil, Li Fan did not witness the spatial fissure reappear. News of the spatial turbulence zone forming at the Nie residence, however,
spread quietly through Haiyan City. Many unfamiliar Chu refiners appeared in Haiyan City, frequently active near the Nie family estate. Because Li Fan remained at the Nie residence, Nie Donghai and Nie Tian rarely approached Nie Tian.
Adopting a hands-off approach, both understood that any conversation between them and Nie Tian was likely to be overheard as long as Li Fan was present. Nie Tian, aware of the complexities, remained largely secluded for 3 months.
Even refraining from practicing the new fighting technique he'd learned at the different location within the Nie family grounds. He worried that Li Fan might unravel his secrets. The An residents, 3 cultivators from Lingbao Pavilion,
having traveled a long distance, returned from the Nie family's residence late at night and found in Shi, the leader, a short and stout man named Xuanhuan, always seemed to wear a warm smile. He was in Shi's senior uncle,
possessing a rudimentary understanding of spatial power. "Girl, the spatial turbulence zone hasn't reappeared for 3 months. I've secretly investigated the area at night during these 3 months, and haven't discovered any spatial anomalies."
Xuanhuan mused for a moment before continuing. "In my opinion, it was probably just an accident. The spatial turbulence zone likely won't reappear. We took turns waiting for 3 months and can guarantee that there were no abnormalities during that time.
The other two confirmed. The three of them had been taking shifts watching the Nie family. If there were any spatial anomalies at the Nie residence, they would certainly sense it.
The complete lack of activity over such a long period led them to privately believe that the fleeting spatial anomaly at the Nie families might have truly been an accident. They held important positions at Lingbao Pavilion, burdened with numerous affairs,
and couldn't stay in Haiyan City permanently. Having found Anshi and said all this, it was clear they intended to leave. It seems we can only try a different approach. Anshi, her voluptuous body nestled in a soft recliner, propped her chin with one hand,
her beautiful eyes sparkling with intelligence as she smiled faintly. A young man named Nie Tian from the Nie family mysteriously disappeared for 10 days before the incident. During those 10 days, Lingyan sect showed unusual concern,
and Lifan used many connections to search for the boy. The Yun family and the Yuan family were turned upside down by Lifan. It doesn't make sense. When I detected unusual fluctuations emanating from the Nie family's spatial domain,
I rushed over immediately and noticed the boy right away. At that time I didn't know he was Nie Tian, who had disappeared for 10 days. He vanished inexplicably for 10 days, only to reappear at the Nie family precisely when the spatial rift occurred.
I have reason to believe that he spent those 10 days in a bizarre, fractured space. Moreover, that space must have been capable of supporting life, otherwise he wouldn't have returned alive. At this point,
and she recalled her conversation with Nie Tian 3 months prior at the Nie family residence, and couldn't help but chuckle. 3 powerful cultivators from the Lingbao Pavilion had been intently listening to her deductions. But after her captivating smile,
they all felt as if the dim room had suddenly brightened. As they looked at Anshi, a dazed expression fell upon their faces, momentarily lost in her stunning charm. Qiu Heng was the first to regain his composure. He glared at her and rebuked, "Focus!"
And she playfully stuck out her tongue and said with a smile, "Since the Nie family hasn't shown any further anomalies, perhaps we should start with that boy, Nie Tian, and try to figure out where he went during those 10 days.
I have a hunch that the unusual spatial fluctuations around the Nie family are heavily connected to that boy. Caused by a person." Qiu Heng's expression shifted, as if he'd thought of something. He nodded and said, "Indeed, that's a possibility.
Some individuals with unique physiques or possessing strange artifacts can trigger bizarre spatial anomalies. But that boy, he's only a teenager, of low cultivation. Could he really have caused this? Master Uncle, please stay a few more days.
I'll try to set a trap to see if we can find the truth from that Nie Tian," and she pleaded. "Very well." Qiu Heng nodded in agreement. The sudden appearance of an unknown spatial turbulence zone is a serious matter,
Potentially even capable of reversing the fate of a key refinement sect. That's why, upon hearing of the anomaly at the Nie family, they rushed here from the Lingbao Pavilion, hoping to get a piece of the pie from Lingyan sect. They've waited for 3 months.
If they find nothing, they won't be able to account for their actions back at Lingbao Pavilion, so they'd rather let Anshi try again. "Father, something terrible has happened!" At the same time, at the Nie family residence, Nie Can
burst into Nie Bichuan's cultivation chamber, his face grim and dark. "What is it?" Nie Bichuan exhaled a plume of icy mist. Disturbed in his cultivation, he was rather displeased.
"What great emergency has you acting so flustered? Lifan is at the Nie residence. If anything truly beyond the Nie family's capacity were to happen, he would stand idly by. I just received news," Nie Can said, "that after all this time,
The blocked mine shaft has finally been reopened. Shouldn't that be good news? Nie Bichuan asked strangely. The mine where fire cloudstone is excavated is the lifeline of the Nie family. After the last collapse,
they took the opportunity to force Nie Shang's abdication and arrange for another family elder loyal to them to take charge of the mine. That elder, in order to demonstrate his ability,
hired a large number of laborers from Black Cloud City to clear the fallen rocks in the mine shaft. The mine shaft, which would have taken much longer to clear, was opened ahead of schedule thanks to his day and night efforts. That mine, it seems
there's no more fire cloud stone." Nie Can's voice trembled. "Impossible!" Nie Bichuan jumped up, exclaiming. "Not long ago, Lingyan sect sent a cultivator skilled in mineral detection to inspect the mine. He said that at our family's rate of extraction,
we could continue mining for at least another few decades. How could he be wrong? They inspected all the mine shafts, conducted a thorough survey, and truly found not a single piece of fire cloud stone." Nie Can said, his face falling. "Impossible!"
How could this be possible? Nie Bichuan was also stunned. He knew very well that the Nie family's acceptance and protection by Lingyan sect were all thanks to the family's continuous mining of that particular mountain for all these years.
If the Nie family loses this, they're highly likely to be abandoned by the Lingyan sect, becoming a family without backing. A family without backing would struggle to survive in Haiyan City.
The An and Yun families would have no qualms about dealing with the Nie family then. This news is to be kept secret for now. I'll go to the mine myself to confirm if it's true. Nie Tian panicked. The following day, having waited in vain,
Li Fan decided to wait no longer before leaving. He ignored Nie Tian and went to the 5-story building where Nie was. Upon arrival, he had Nie call Nie Tian down as well. Nie Tian came down from the 3rd floor and bowed to Li Fan.
"Greetings, Mr. Li, don't be so formal. Call me Uncle Li from now on." Li Fan glared at him. After learning from his master, Zhong Zizu, that Nie Tian had dared to tell his master such a blatant lie, he felt that this boy was full of tricks. Therefore,
he always felt that the boy was somewhat detestable and naturally didn't have a good expression. "Okay, Uncle Li," Nie Tian replied obediently. "It's been 3 months, and there have been no spatial anomalies here.
I can't stay at the Nie families for much longer, so I'm returning to Lingyan sect today." Li Fan didn't look at Nie Donghai, but kept his gaze fixed on Nie Tian, saying, "Being pulled into that spatial rift must have been terrifying."
You may have forgotten some things because of the fear." He paused, then continued, "If you remember anything later, you can come to Lingyan sect and tell me anytime." "I've said," everyone replied weakly. "Really, Li?" Li Fan pursed his lips.
Thought for a moment, then suddenly smiled. "All right then, I won't ask any more questions today. If you remember anything later, remember to come to Lingyan sect to find me. If what you remember significantly impacts Lingyan sect,
you'll have achieved a great merit. Lingyan sect is always generous in rewarding those who achieve great merit. Your great contribution will allow you to bypass the requirement of being 15 years old and reaching the 9th level of Q refinement.
You will be directly accepted into Lingyan sect and become a true disciple of the sect." Upon hearing this, Nie Donghai's eyes lit up, and Nie Tian felt a jolt in his heart.
Becoming a disciple of Lingyan sect had always been the ultimate goal for the younger generation of the Nie family. And he was no exception. Li Fan's words made him understand that the so-called rules were entirely at the whim of those who made them.
15 years old, and cultivating to the 9th level of Q refinement, that was the condition for Lingyan sect to accept the children of the Nie family. This was a rule set decades ago. The Nie family had never dared to even think of breaking this rule.
But the rule makers were Lingyan sect themselves. With a single word from Lingyan sect, this decades-old rule could be changed, instantly making him a disciple. To be honest, this temptation was extremely alluring to him, and that wasn't all.
Seeming to see that Nie Donghai and Nie Tian were both moved, Li Fan chuckled and said, "With enough merit, I can guarantee that your grandfather will regain his position as head of the Nie family. Even his injuries aren't entirely beyond repair because of you.
Your grandfather might even break through to a higher realm." The thin and wary Nie Donghai trembled at these words, his eyes shining with a rekindled hope. Chapter 1031. Unmoved, breaking the rules, becoming a Lingyan sect disciple directly.
To help his grandfather reclaim his position as head of the Nie family and heal his injuries, allowing him to continue his cultivation path, the conditions offered by Li Fan left Nie Tian's heart pounding,
almost making him immediately reveal the truth to pave his way to success. But as he was about to speak, he suddenly recalled the wonders of that strange land, the 8 fire dragons, the dilapidated ancient altar,
and the giant arms pointing towards the heavens all held an irresistible allure, captivating his thoughts day and night. He vaguely felt that compared to the mysteries of that land, Li Fan's offer was insignificant, yet
Nie Donghai's current predicament and the lingering illness that had plagued him for years tugged at Nie Tian's heart, making him want to reveal the truth and alleviate his grandfather's suffering. Unable to decide,
he looked towards Nie Donghai as if seeking help. He noticed Nie Donghai take a deep breath, regaining his composure, his expression calm and unwavering. "What, did you suddenly remember something?" Li Fan offered an encouraging glance, thinking,
a mere child facing such temptation, how can he resist? He believed Nie Tian was about to reveal the truth. "No, I can't remember anything." Nie Tian's face was bitter. He shook his head and said, "Perhaps I'll remember later if I do."
"I'll go find Uncle Li immediately, you brat." Li Fan cursed under his breath, then said helplessly, "Forget it, let it be. Take care of yourself and be careful. Don't actually get kidnapped again and make us search the whole world for you." After saying this,
Li Fan didn't want to stay a moment longer and quickly left the Nie family home. After he left, Nie Donghai looked at Nie Tian and gestured for him to remain silent. After a full 15 minutes, Nie Donghai, certain Li Fan was long gone, finally spoke. "All right,
grandfather." Nie Tian felt guilty and tried to explain. Nie Donghai waved his hand, his expression serious. "You're not a child anymore. I trust your judgment, since you didn't tell Li Fan the truth.
I understand that what you encountered must be something incredibly extraordinary." Nie Tian nodded, whispering, "I think that because of that encounter, even if I don't enter the Lingyan sect, I can still achieve extraordinary things.
I also believe that in the future, I can use my own strength to help you." Grandfather, restore your position as clan leader and heal your injuries. Nie Donghai was inwardly moved, even more certain that Nie Tian had had an unusual encounter.
He pondered for a moment, then said, from today on, you must keep that secret. Don't reveal it to anyone until you have enough power to protect it. That includes me. I understand. Nie Tian nodded emphatically.
He silently vowed in his heart that he would make up for everything Gamide had lost because of that distant place. Many times over, father, a letter came from the An family, and she, that vixen, actually invited Xuanhuan to visit the An residence at that moment.
Nie Tian walked in from outside. She held a pink letter, gazing at Nie Tian with a strange look while speaking to Nie Donghai. And she, Nie Donghai frowned. Tell the messenger that Nie Tian is ill recently and shouldn't go out. Oh, Nie Tian nodded.
Then glared at Nie Tian. At such a young age you're already attracting bees and butterflies. Now look, that vixen is almost at the door. Nie Tian shrunk his head with a sheepish grin. Nonsense, Nie Donghai coldly snorted. That girl from the An family.
Her every move is purposeful. Do you think she became a prominent figure in the Lingbao Pavilion, emerging from Haiyan City, on her own merit? Before Nie Tian could speak, Nie Donghai's faced.
She's seen that nothing unusual has happened here and wants to start with Xuanhuan, to find out where he disappeared to for those 10 days. I just saw Mr. Li leave, Nie Tian said. Her curiosity piqued, also wanting to know the truth. From now on,
you are never to ask about that again, Nie Donghai said sternly. Oh, Nie Tian felt a surge of resentment. Go tell the An family. After dismissing Nie Tian, Nie Donghai instructed Nie Tian, remember to stay away from Anshi.
That girl is the most terrifying person in Black Cloud City. Years ago, the Yun family attempted to challenge the An family's position in Black Cloud City, and suffered devastating losses. To my knowledge, most of those from the Yun family died at her hands.
Her path to the Lingbao Pavilion was also paved with blood. That woman is notoriously ruthless, and she's killed numerous cultivators from the Lingbao Pavilion. You may not know this, but after she returned to Black Cloud City,
the Yun family suddenly became docile. Yang, compared to her, is simply insignificant. Nie Donghai's words were filled with apprehension towards Anshi. He feared that Nie Tian, in his ignorance, might unwittingly provoke her. I understand.
Nie Tian was secretly shocked. He only knew that Anshi was powerful, but he hadn't realized just how formidable she was, to be considered the most terrifying person in Black Cloud City by his grandfather. Alright, don't worry too much.
In that woman's eyes, you including our Nie family are just insignificant figures. After all, we have the Lingyan sect backing us. As long as you stay in the Nie family, she will give the Lingyan sect face and won't dare to act recklessly.
Nie Donghai patted his head. Li Fan is gone, so you don't need to be so cautious anymore. You can try playing with the dagger that girl from the An family gave you. And, you can try doing things that weren't convenient before. Having said that,
he suddenly remembered something and added pointedly, but try to avoid manifesting that spatial tear anomaly within the Nie family, lest you cause new trouble. I understand, Nie Tian said, his mind clear. Go. Nie Donghai waved his hand.
Nie Tian immediately returned to the 3rd floor. For the past 3 months, knowing the beast bone was unusual, he hadn't dared to touch it, lest Li Fan notice anything amiss, even the dagger gifted by Anshi.
After Nie Donghai recognized it as a mid-grade spiritual artifact, he hadn't dared to use it lightly. Spiritual artifacts are divided into 5 grades: low grade, mid-grade, high grade, spirit infused, and immortal. Each grade has 7 rantas.
Are divided into 10 levels: Q condensation, post-heaven, mid-heaven, pre-mortal realm, profound realm, spirit void domain, saint domain, and god domain. Generally speaking,
Q condensation and post-heaven cultivators only need low-grade spiritual artifacts to fully utilize their strength. Mid-grade spiritual artifacts require at least mid-heaven cultivation to unleash their true power in the entire Nie family.
Mid-grade spiritual artifacts were few and far between. That's right. Nie Beichuan only tried to shamelessly seize it after realizing that the dagger Anshi gave him was a mid-grade spiritual artifact. A mid-grade spiritual artifact.
Shez quite Jenna muttered softly, taking out the half-arm long crimson dagger. He stroked the smooth blade with his finger, attempting to activate it with spiritual energy. Hiss hiss, fine.
Crimson lines of fire suddenly appeared from within the dagger. The crimson dagger instantly released flames, and the tip of the blade suddenly emitted a sharp, rainbow-like radiance. At that,
the beast bone he had placed in his waist pouch seemed to sense something and became intensely hot. Nie Tian's waist couldn't withstand the high temperature, so he quickly took out the beast bone. A strange suction force instantly emanated from the beast bone.
Nie Tian clearly saw the rainbow light shooting straight from the tip of the dagger become twisted and curved, clearly being pulled by the beast bone. The next moment,
he saw the rainbow light at the edge of the dagger's blade twisting and quickly disappearing into the beast bone. Within the blade of the dagger, the fine, crimson lines of fire vanished one by one at a speed visible to the naked eye. Quickly the dagger
which had just displayed its strange power, became dull and lifeless, reduced to an ordinary object. Puff! Finally, a strange sound came from within the dagger, as if some kind of enchantment had been completely shattered. At the same time,
and she had just received news that Nie Donghai, replacing Nie Tian, had explicitly rejected her invitation. Puff! An identical strange sound, exactly like the one from the dagger, emanated from an object in her sleeve,
causing her to let out a soft gasp of surprise. Hey, the impoverished Nie family would never carelessly destroy a mid-grade spiritual artifact. The Crimson Sun Blade. It's in that boy's hands, and now the Crimson Sun Blade is completely ruined. How interesting.
Even more 3-2 a single style of fist technique, ruined, inside. Nie Tian stared blankly at the dagger. It was dull, lifeless, and he suddenly felt a wave of despondency wash over him. A mid-grade spiritual artifact.
The entire Nie family didn't possess many, and his grandfather's mid-grade spiritual artifact had been sold at a low price years ago to fund the search for a medicinal cure.
He understood that An Shi had gifted him a mid-grade spiritual artifact because Jiang Su was present. It was only then that An Shi had been so generous. Such a precious artifact.